Yes, yes, yes. It is certainly going to be a great show because, as always, we'll be telling you what's been happening all across the world. So coming up today on Arise 360, first we'll be taking a look at what has been making headlines across the four corners of the globe on our trip around the world. Then we'll be taking a look at the music industry as we find out what's been happening with our favorite hit makers. Also on the show, we'll be having Nigerian comedian Bovi on the show today as we discuss his upcoming show and also the emergence of skit makers that have flooded the comedy business. And finally, we'll be breaking down what's hot and what's not in film and television. It's going to be all that and much more right here on Arise 360. All right, then, we're starting today's show in a very special way, and I am so excited for it. Talented Nigerian comedian Bovi is set to thrill fans on Saturday, September 30th, 2023, with a night of endless laughter at the Convention Center at the Eco Hotel and Suites in Victoria Island, Lagos. He disclosed this during a press briefing in Lagos on Monday, September 25th. And according to Bovi, the red carpet is set to begin at 6 p.m. as guests will get to enjoy all sorts of cocktail drinks on the red carpet, while the main show will kick off at 8 p.m. and end by 11 p.m. He urged fans to grab their tickets and also to keep to time. Let's take a look.
Stand-up comedy. Long story short, it's stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is an art form, right? And as stand-up comedians, every once in a while, we want people to come and fellowship with us, people to come and have a good laugh, you know. So for me, Bovi, this time around is identity crisis. So pretty much everything I'm going to be talking about borders on identity, who you identify with, what your cultural identity is, what your constitutional identity is, what your sexual identities, you know. So I'm just basically giving the other side of the news, my opinion on stuff.
Well, you heard it from the man, and joining us now on the show as we discuss what to expect from his forthcoming show, Identity Crisis, is Nigerian comedian, and I think I can say my friend, Bovi, who will be discussing this. Let's even just go straight into it.
Right.
Identity crisis. Mm-hmm. That's a very interesting way to look at it. I mean, I've been seeing your skits, and I think the one that really stuck with me was the Tony Elumelu one. It was hilarious. And he has also come out to say that you got it to a T. He couldn't believe that he was not looking at himself, that he was looking at you. So can you tell us more about that? What's the concept behind it, and what should your fans expect? You know, before the break, I was saying Man on Fire, but Man on Fire is, you know, we've passed that.
Was an era.
That was an era. Now we're about to enter this new era. Can you tell us more about it, Bovi?
Well, you know, when a comedian has a show, special, most of his jokes border around a theme or a topic. Right. So most of the jokes I'll be telling this time border on mankind and our different types of identities. So I needed to find a way to market the show to make people understand that, okay, this is what I'm going to be talking about for a good part of the night. So that's why Identity Crisis.
Okay. Yeah. All right then. So I want us to kind of veer off to, you know, skits and skit making, because there's this perception that it's almost flooded the industry. But I was reading an interview that you did where you said you don't think that skit making is a threat to stand-up comedy. Can you tell us more about that?
It's a funny thing when I get asked that question, when journalists say, skit makers are taking over the market. I'm like, how? How do you mean? When I started doing stand-up comedy, like in 2008, we were already doing skits to promote these shows. People watch the skits and say, this skit is funny. That means this guy's going to be very funny on stage. And they turn up for the shows. I didn't start skit making in Nigeria. I met skit making, if you know what I mean. So skit making has always been there. Now it has grown into a business of its own. There are people who can wake up and say, you know, I'm a skit maker and this is what I do for a living. And they will do it for years and make good money. So it's the birth of a new industry. It doesn't affect this.
It's almost like an evolution.
It's an evolution, you know, it's a branch off is creating a new branch of comedy for consumers. It's always been there. So I tell people, when people say, oh, it's affecting stand-up comedy, I'm like, it's because in your mind, you are thinking competition. You're not thinking collaboration. There are so many skit makers who have actually come on board to do stand-up. And vice versa.
Vice versa. Now, there was I wasn't at the show, but I saw the videos. I don't remember when it was exactly, but you had brought your daughter out, and honestly,
that was last year.
She killed. As in, I remember thinking, "Oh my goodness!" Like she is exactly like maybe even funnier. But I want let's talk about that a bit, because I believe that in our generation, or I said the generation just before us, comedy wasn't really seen as. If you're a comedian, you're looking at, are you serious? Do you even know what you're doing? And I would say that it's really it's your set of comedians that really pushed it to the forefront and showed that no, this is actually a business. It's now something that people look at and they now want to become comedians. Now, looking at your own child, who I would say has a knack for comedy and even acting, is this something that you're coaching her to do? Are you worried about the industry? How do you reckon you would navigate your baby girl coming into this kind of space eventually?
I'm coaching my kids to be whatever they want to be. I'm not streamlining them, right? So she just came to introduce me. She's always been, let me say, an entertainer, right from before she started to talk. She has always been animated. She has always been excited. She has always been brilliant. So for every aspect, not just for her, but my two sons as well, every aspect of their lives, everything they find interesting, I am encouraging them to chase it. You never can tell. She just might end up loving being a director or something, So for now, it's an all-comers affair. Oh, you think you can introduce daddy? Come and do it.
Will she be introducing you on Saturday?
Nah.
Well, we want to see her.
She's not.
All right then. I mean, while we're still on family, we're going to go back to comedy very soon. I know that you and your wife renewed your vows recently. Let's talk about that a bit, because we're seeing a lot of. And not necessarily to say that it's a bad thing, because at the end of the day, if a marriage is not working, it's not working.
Right.
But in a time where we're seeing, divorces going up, we're seeing you renewing your vows. How important was that for you to do? I mean, I met her earlier and I was like, oh, you're so beautiful in person. You're lucky, you're enjoying Bovi. But let's talk to me more about that, especially as someone who is in the entertainment industry, how, important it is to be able to have that family unit even in 2023.
I think marriage, like many other things, can be simple if you keep it simple. I don't renew my vows every year, every anniversary year. I renew it when I feel, oh, things are dry. Let's renew this stuff. You get? And same thing for her too. So we keep it simple. I take it one day at a time. I don't think there's any template to make a marriage work. I think people need to just understand themselves. People need to understand life. People need to go after what's good for them, what makes them happy. And the only way you can get that is if you have something you are bringing to the table. Because when you give more, then you definitely get. So with that clarity of giving, if where you are is not a good place, then you step out. People think because I've been married for long, I'm an advocate of, marriage this, marriage that, for better, for worse. No. If it's not working, don't kill yourself. That's how I see it,
Definitely.
So I'm lucky though when it comes to marriage. I'm a very lucky person.
You definitely are.
I'm lucky.
All right then. So let's come back to comedy. Interestingly enough, we had Oke Bakassi on last week Sunday as well, and he's celebrating 30 years in the industry. can you just, confirm for me, how long have you been doing comedy, Bovi? If you think, because you were, I remember that your series back.
Family.
Yes. I mean, that was acting, but in a way it was a
Yes.
form of comedy. So you've been doing it for what, 15?
Well, that was actually before stand-up comedy. I started stand-up comedy in 2008. I did my show last year. The only reason I'm doing the show again this year is because, and I'm letting the cat out of the bag now. The only reason I'm doing the show this year is because this is my 15th year as a stand-up professional.
Congratulations.
Thank
15
you.
years in the industry
It's not beans.
It's not beans. And that now brings me to my next question, because we've spoken about the evolution of comedy, and I remember even putting the same question to say, looking at it now as someone who has been in it for a long time, and you can kind of look at your journey and look back in retrospect. How do you feel about the comedy industry in Nigeria right now?
I think on a personal, honest level, I think we are not where we ought to be. But I can't put the entire blame at the feet of comedians, of performers, right? I think we lack the structure that will require for comedians to grow. Take, for example, I started doing my show in a hotel 10 years ago. This is like the 6th, 2013, 2014. 2017, 19, 22, 23. This is the 6th one. I started in a hotel, and I'm still doing it in a hotel. Because there's no 10,000 capacity that's conducive, that people can just drive in and have a good time, So I think that's one area government should look into. We need arenas.
Definitely.
We need arenas, we need comedy clubs. We need those kind of structures on ground for comedians to really express themselves and grow. So I think it's stagnant in that level. The hall I started doing stand-up comedy in 2008 is Muson Center. Until today, it's still functional. I'm not saying it should be out of business, but there should have been like 10, 15 other more Muson centers where people can express themselves. And it goes a long way to show why the likes of the Burna, Wiz, David, can have their shows abroad in huge arenas, but they are not having them at home. It's not like we have stadiums and all, but how conducive is it for people to go in and come out without any hassle? So I just think we need proper structures on ground.
Definitely, I agree with you 1000%. And even though you're a comedian, you are also a fantastic actor.
I started off acting.
Yes, but a lot of, because a lot of people, or let me not say a lot of people, I'll say maybe this Generation Z might not necessarily know that. I want to talk to you about how you are able to, to be honest, like even when you're doing your skits in the way you're acting, right? And are there any, outside of your comedy, are you working on any like feature films, a series? Because honestly, we don't have those kind of series anymore. Just like how you have Friends that you can just keep on replay and just keep laughing, and you even make reference to how simple life was at the time. Is that maybe something that you are already working on, or?
That would be me coming full circle, because I started with Extended Family, which was a sitcom, and it was an instant hit. People liked it. But I think there's so much inside of me, and I don't want to be streamlined into that box. I don't want to be stereotyped, right? I've fought that for many years in my career. So I have a limited series coming out. It's not comedy. It's interesting. Yeah, can't wait for you guys to see it. I have other things I want to do, and maybe eventually I might start with sitcoms again. Just as I started.
I think you should bring it back. Honestly, I think this is a really good time for Nigeria and for Africa to tell those kind of stories. And you're a very brilliant man, so I'm not afraid that you're going to mess up. I think that when you do it, you're going to do it well. Now, in bringing it back to comedy, there are, how do I put it now? Comedy often serves as a reflection of societal issues, regardless of how we want to sugarcoat it. We crack these jokes, but there's always some kind of element of truth towards it. Now, I want to know how you balance humor with addressing serious topics in your comedy, especially in a country like Nigeria that has so many challenges, and also has sensitive Nigerians, because 1 minute you can be laughing with Nigerians, you just go and say the wrong thing, and before you know it, cancelled. So how do you, and you've been doing this for 15 years, I don't think there's ever been a time where I saw your name and saw cancelled. Glory be to God. So how have you been able to do it all of these years?
I've always balanced my act, and that's because I look at stuff not just from an emotional angle, but from a logical angle. So I know how to steady my emotions. Whenever something happens, there are always 2 or more sides to a story. So no matter how ugly it is, we try to look for the humorous side to that story. Sometimes it can be very difficult to do. So sometimes we just turn a blind eye from it because there's nothing funny about it. But as a stand-up comedian, your primary job is to make people happy. Your primary job is to make people laugh, right? So if an issue is too sensitive, we might want to just wait it out. Like maybe there's a tragedy on ground. When 9/11 happened, SNL was very difficult to go ahead that week. So I'm talking about situations like that. Other than that, for every story I have done, no matter how ugly it is, I just try to balance it. No matter how bad something is, there's usually a good side to it or a funny side to it. You know?
Okay.
It's been my saving grace.
All right then. Still talking about this journey, and we're going to come back to the show as we begin to wrap up. The entertainment industry is one that is known for its highs and lows. I mean, no matter who you are, you have your highs and your lows. I want to know what's some of the challenges, or maybe not a full list of all your challenges, but maybe the one that really stood out for you in your career that you were able to overcome, and how were you able to overcome it?
To be honest, it will take me time to really think and remember. Going back to the last question you asked, there are people who have dragged me because of certain topics I have discussed as a performer, and I just laugh. I laugh because I know that nobody can cancel me.
Except God. And God will not do that.
Except God.
And he won't do that.
Yeah, nobody can cancel me. Because I come with clean hands to the table. Yeah. Regardless of what I'm saying, I come with clean hands. I don't have intentions. I just want to make people laugh. When it comes to general highs and lows, I just think, apart from the difficulty in putting up shows together, I have been a very lucky person career-wise. I've always, have I had obstacles? Yes, but those obstacles led to greater things. So I can't really say I have suffered, not just in the industry, but in life generally. Definitely. So I'm one of those lucky human beings.
Like I'll tap into your luck before
I'm just
you leave.
grateful, man.
All right then. So I want to kind of talk about the let's say the synergy between your comedy and your acting, and in the stand-up to acting. Can you kind of walk the audience through the differences in preparing for stand-up comedy and I must say stand-up comedy and acting? Like, how do you get into that mental space where it's like, okay, it's time, Bovi, I need to get into character. This is what it is. I go out on this stage. I have 1 hour to kill it. Like, what's that process like? What are you doing behind the scenes? Do you have to drink 5 bottles of water? Do you have to look around and be like, I'm the man. I'm the man. Push those eyebrows back. Like, what do you do? I'm kind of curious to know what you do before you get on stage.
I don't think I have a physical ritual. And when I say I don't think, I've done different things. There are times I'll just be alone in my room, 1 hour, the calm before the storm. There are times where I'm too busy to have that peace. But most importantly, I do the show in my head. And I do the show in my head, probably 6 different versions before I go out there. Because when it comes to stand-up comedy, you can experience anything on stage. Things you didn't plan for. So I prepare earnestly because people paid money. And I need to give them value for their money. I also need to save my career because RMD told me one time that you're only as good as your last performance. So people are not going to say, oh, today was his bad day. They'll be like, he's not good anymore. Stuff like that. So when you think about all that, you know you have to really prepare. Yeah. And the same thing goes for acting too. You really have to see yourself in the character, you see yourself in the role, and then prepare rehearse, practice, because with continuous practice, you will get better at that thing. So it's pretty much the same thing. How you prepare.
You said something like a comedian is only as good as his last performance.
Right.
So it brings me to my next question.
Okay.
Because we were talking about highs and lows. I'm sure there's been maybe one or two. It might not even be a show per se, maybe an event or whatever, where you just felt like this one bad girl. Can you talk to me about that event? And probably one of your highest moments where you walked off stage thinking, I was born for this.
Most of the time, career-wise, I've walked off stage thinking, I was born for this.
Okay, 99.9 success rate.
Yes. And then it's good you mentioned sometimes events, maybe corporate events or weddings. Many of them, not all, many of them tend to be rowdy because food is going on, the decor is blocking people are gisting. Nigerians just love to party. So I've grown to that stage where I know how to read an event, and then I know how to narrow in on where I can get people's attentions. Have I had lows, dips? Oh, absolutely, but that was in the embryonic stages of my career.
At the beginning.
In the beginning. But not anymore. I prepared too hard, right? Even for private gigs, I will sit with you. I will prepare with you. If you are not ready to sit and prepare with me, sometimes I just say, you know what, I can't do this event because people are going to say it's me who didn't deliver. Some people think it's just to walk on stage. I should just come, take mic, just talk. Just talk, it's you now. No, it don't work like that. I need information. Right?
It's not that simple.
Right.
So I want to really back to your event that's happening September 30th.
Yes.
Eco Hotel and Suites Convention
Next
Center.
tomorrow.
Next tomorrow, just a few days before Nigeria's independence.
A few hours before Nigeria's independence.
A few hours before the independence. What should we be expecting from that evening? It's going to be
very explosive, because one thing I always do during my events is my opening acts are usually some comedians that are very explosive, but commercially they've not blown. So this time I have some who have blown. I have some who are coming up with all the dynamite, right? So there's about 8 of them. It's a night of comedy, it's a night of laughter. These guys are going to rip the place to pieces, right? I've told them to just make sure they don't damage the whole building so that when I come, I'll see what to damage. And then after them, I'm going to go on stage and kill it, God willing.
Yes, and when I was reading my intro, there was something very specific, the time, because
right.
Niger,
right,
African time. Even me, I'm guilty of it. How important is it? When we're looking at like an event, a comedy event, the timing of it, people coming on. Can you just kind of hone on how important it is for people to get there on time for the event on the 30th?
So. For every show I have done, especially in the last 2 editions, right? We had people walking into the hall when the show was over.
No way.
Yeah, and they bought their tickets. Some of them even came from out of town.
So why did they come late?
They were like, because shows don't start early. I'm like, well, I start early. I think me and my team have devised a means to entertain those who come really early. So we only hold off for maybe 10 to 20 minutes. But once we start, we have started. So
it's almost about breaking that cycle, because
yes.
I won't call it an excuse, but the truth is we do have a number of events that don't start on time. So it's up to organizers like you and comedians and actresses, actors, musicians that have these events to make sure that they start on time, so that there's a culture of early start time.
Trust me, I think everybody who invests money in doing a show wants to start on time. But it's a very difficult situation we find ourselves, because I don't want to throw the opening acts into an empty hall. It breaks their spirit. You are performing to a hall that is supposed to seat 3,000 people and there are only like 200 people.
Yeah.
Another 300 are outside loitering. Another 2,000 are on the phone like, have they started? And when they start, call me. Then you start strolling in. It even affects the picture quality because someone is performing, camera is making a video of that person, and then you're seeing people walking in the hall.
Yeah.
But like I said, we have devised a means to start the show, audio visuals, people coming, but it gets to the point, we know our cutoff points, and we're like, regardless, we will go ahead.
This is it. All right, then. You've heard it from the man himself. I cannot wait to, you know, for this particular day to come so that means I can come and laugh very well. Don't come late, please. 6 p.m., cocktails on the red carpet, and the show kicks off at exactly...
The doors open by 7.
7, okay.
The red carpet, which I like to call the experience area, because it's not a glamour event, so I usually just call mine the experience area, right? It's open from 6.
Yes.
7 o'clock, the doors open, and then we have the pre-show, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, bam, and by 11 o'clock, it's done. Or maybe like, just give us 11:30.
We'll see.
Or midnight.
We'll see.
Just make sure you come on time, okay? I've had such an amazing time speaking to you, Bovi. I'm so proud of you, and I cannot wait to see what you have in store for us on Saturday, of course.
Thank you.
Bovi.